Zach, I want to give you the first crack at this. There was the story in the Washington Post yesterday suggesting that this was not going to be broad tariffs, that they would be more targeted. It would be every country, but it would be targeted at issues that are very important to the economy or the national security here. The incoming president himself pushing back against that. What does it mean? What does that mean for global trade?
Yeah, good morning and good to be with you. Look, President Trump has stated that America needs to impose global tariffs to correct for widespread distortions in the market, right? And these are distortions that stem from China that have distorted prices across goods across the global market. So absolutely, this isn't a sector-specific approach. China's distortions and its impact on the market have been absolutely so widespread that global tariffs are absolutely warranted. The president is going to pursue widespread global tariffs on imports of goods. And there's a number of legal authorities that he could use to impose those tariffs, right? All the tariffs are going to be, one, to correct for trade distortions, and two, are going to be appropriate under the law.
But do you believe, Nazak, that this is something that is going to be implemented as such, or this is something that is going to be used to negotiate better situations on a country-by-country or, industry-by-industry basis?
I hear that question a lot. And the fundamental purpose of the tariffs are, one, it's to correct for distortions, right? And the entire goal of tariffs is not to keep them on goods indefinitely. It's to impose tariffs, correct for the distortions. And once our trading partners decide to eliminate their harmful trade practices, right? We want free trade, but we absolutely, and the Trump administration absolutely wants fair trade. And the imposition of tariffs corrects for the distortions. And once our trading partners decide to remove the distortions, those tariffs can be removed. So it is a negotiating tool, but the premise is to correct for the distortions and then compel through the imposition of tariffs for our trading partners to remove their distortive trading practices to make the economy stronger. Our economy is being weakened because our trading partners are taking advantage of the U.S.'s free borders to bring their distortions into the U.S. market and to the global market.
Christine, that sounds like a perfectly reasonable argument to come through with it, but I think in reality there are questions about whether it can be done that easily, whether other countries will go along and say, you're right, this isn't fair, and we will change things. What do you think? Christine, hold on for just a second. I don't think we're hearing your audio. Guys, if we can double check that.
Nazak is absolutely right.
Christine.
We are on, we have distortions of our exporters face distortions abroad that foreign firms do not face here. To the extent we can, President Trump can use, a variety of policies and tools, including tariffs, to correct for that. That would be great. The one thing, though, that President Trump did campaign on is lowering inflation, and tariffs will make it a little bit harder to do that. And it will just be that much more important than to cut government spending, fiscal discipline, boosting productivity and an energy abundant policy, as he has also talked about. So can it be used as a negotiating tool? Yes. Does it work? Sometimes, yes, as we've seen in the past, especially with President Trump and Japan and ag. But can also lead to a lot of retaliation. And could work. It could also lead to a global trade war. But there definitely are distortions out there that we do need to address.
Yeah, I guess for markets watching this so closely, for business leaders watching this so closely, the question becomes, how far will this be pushed? How far is this a hill that the administration's willing to die on? If it comes back in the form of much higher inflation, if it starts pressuring that. And I guess, Nazak, I'll ask you first, is there a point where, okay, we say we're more concerned about making sure Americans aren't paying a lot more than making sure everything works out perfectly fairly?
Look, I've been doing, and it's a fair question, I've been doing, trade policy and tariffs for about 25 years, right? And what we see often, and more again, is that when you impose tariffs, it actually makes the domestic industry stronger. It actually not only onshores domestic manufacturing, but increases wages. So this notion that we're just going to have inflation by the virtue of the imposition of taxes really doesn't take into account the reality that wages are going to increase. So yes, will goods be slightly more expensive potentially, but that the rise in prices is the effect of correcting for distortions. Workers are going to get more money, so they can pay for those price increases. The other thing I wanted to underscore is that in the first Trump administration, when I served and when we imposed tariffs, we actually didn't have that level of retaliation. The International Trade Commission did a study. They noted that the effect of inflation on the Trump's first-term tariffs were infinitesimal, if anything at all. And we also saw that our trading partners didn't retaliate. They actually got into trading agreements with the United States, USMCA, et cetera, to remove the distortions, the tariffs on steel and aluminum, compelled countries to impose their own safeguard measures to protect themselves from China's overcapacity and pull exports away from the United States, where they were flooding the United States because of the secondary effects of China's overcapacity. So what we see over and over again, increased wages, no inflation, and corrections by our trading partners to remove the trade distortions that have been harming the U.S. economy. And one needs to look no further than the first Trump administration to see how that's going to play out once again. And finally, I will add that in the first Trump administration, he imposed tax cuts to sort of offset some of that initial shock to the markets of the imposition of tariffs. He's talked about tax cuts again, and I think that that's going to be forthcoming too to help ease some of the transition period as the administration imposes some more tariffs.
Christine, no question. We don't want dumping here when it comes to steel, when it comes to automobiles or anything else. We don't want dumping from subsidized industries overseas coming here and disrupting things. But there is an entire school of thought that if you protect yourself entirely from competition with other countries, that companies will not be as lean and as efficient and effective as they could be or should be otherwise. You also have the issue of thinking that we can push our partners on things, but maybe our trading partners on things. But if we are picking an America first nationalistic view on every single issue, and I'm thinking in the case of Japan, where Nazak pointed out that we had very good things that we worked out with Japan in the last time, from agriculture with working on some of these tariffs. Now we're telling Japan that Nippon Steel cannot come here and invest in a U.S. company and buy that company and spend money here. Is there a point where there's a little too much pushing that goes on, or do you think this actually makes for better deals?
There's so much there. Well, first of all, tariffs do raise prices. Okay, to what extent is questionable, and especially for the downstream industries. So we can't necessarily just brush that off. The ITC study and others definitely showed that the price increases, but it wasn't disastrous. That said, can it be used as a tool for reciprocity? Yes, absolutely. In some cases, President Trump did that in agriculture, after we pulled out of TPP. But look, there is no perfect world. Hopefully, we'll get a little bit closer to that over the next 4 years. But whether or not we're ever going to get to, a tit for tat, one for one reciprocity, you don't want to hold out for that, until the very end, and then you end up dooming yourself in. You get the situation where then you end up closing yourself off to competition. The Nippon Steel deal, I don't think it's over yet, but that was an interesting potential opportunity for U.S. Steel to get a real injection of capital, technology, managerial expertise that could really, help them to be sustainable moving forward. Look, if tariffs worked, the steel industry would be booming right now. They've had decades and decades of a lot of tariff protection, a lot of a variety of other protection from competition, import competition. So if tariffs worked, we wouldn't have a declining steel industry. So just keep that in mind. Will tariffs be disastrous? Probably not. But they're not going to be costless either. And yes, they do help save some jobs in those particular protected sectors. But but then everybody else who buys those goods have to pay higher prices. So it's not a free lunch. It never is. Trump says he wants reciprocity in trade relationships. That could be a very good outcome. We'll just need very good negotiators to make sure that happens and doesn't end up in the global trade war.